I got him.
Real location coordinates coming your way.
She's on a jet. Destination unknown.
I think you understand what they'll do to her when they get her out of this country.
Time's not on your side.
Byron, all I promise was limitless.
Something happened to Joe that no one saw coming, and by the time you finish this video, you're going to want answers immediately. Because right now, Joe is fighting for her life, and the people who are supposed to save her might be the very same people who put her in this position in the first place. Sounds impossible? Well, Special Ops Lioness Season 3. Episode 4 is about to blow the doors off everything you thought you knew about this show. Joe's daring rescue is finally here, and so is the reveal fans have been dying for. Who is the traitor hiding inside the CIA? Worst of all, someone she should be able to trust has apparently sold her out. That's not just bad luck. That's betrayal at the highest level, and it changes everything about how this rescue mission is going to unfold. Episode 4 picks up in the middle of chaos, and there is no easing into it. From the very first moment, the tension is expected to be unbearable. Every second that passes is a second closer to losing Joe for good, and that kind of pressure does something to people. It forces mistakes, and it forces a rescue mission that has almost no room for error. This will not be some clean textbook extraction. Expect it to be rushed. Expect it to be dangerous because when someone's life is hanging by a thread, perfection stops being the priority. While the quick reaction force scrambles to move into position, Joe herself is not just sitting around waiting to be saved. She is expected to rely on every ounce of her training just to stay alive long enough for help to arrive. Her ability to read people, manipulate a conversation, and buy herself precious time could be the only thing standing between her and a very bad ending. Back at Langley, the atmosphere is just as suffocating, but in a completely different way. Caitlyn and Byron are not only racing against the clock to save Joe, they are also racing to figure out who inside their own walls decided to hand her over to the enemy. And here's the part that should really unsettle you. This isn't some random outside threat. This is someone close, someone trusted, someone who had access to information that only a small, tight circle of people should have ever known. Doesn't that make your skin crawl a little? As Caitlyn starts pulling at the threads of this investigation, she may begin to realize that this goes far deeper than one bad actor. High-ranking officials could be scrambling behind the scenes to cover their tracks, erase digital evidence, and quietly protect themselves before the truth catches up to them. That means every moment Caitlyn spends investigating is a moment where the real traitor gets closer to disappearing completely. And if that happens, Joe won't be the only one in danger. The whole agency could be compromised from the inside out. Think about that for a second. The CIA can't even trust its own walls anymore. Who do Caitlyn and Byron actually turn to? Who do they warn, and who do they keep in the dark? One wrong move, one misplaced trust, and the entire rescue operation could collapse before it even has a chance to succeed. And here's where things get even messier. If the mole is still active and still feeding information to the enemy, then the rescue mission itself could already be compromised. That means the very team trying to save Joe could be walking straight into a trap set by the person they're trying to protect her from. Every move has to be careful. Every move has to be quiet. Because one leak, one careless decision, and this whole operation falls apart in seconds. But the danger in this episode doesn't stay contained to Joe alone, and that's what makes this next part so gut-wrenching. Her family, especially Neil and her kids, could be pulled directly into the fallout of this betrayal. With her identity and her mission exposed, is it really such a stretch to think foreign agents might see her loved ones as leverage? Or worse, as targets? Episode 4 is expected to show just how real that threat has become, forcing Neil and the children into tighter protective custody as the danger creeping toward them keeps growing. For Joe, this changes everything. This is no longer just about her own survival anymore. She may be forced to face an incredibly painful truth. The work she has dedicated her entire life to has now put the people she loves most directly in harm's way. That kind of guilt doesn't just disappear. It's expected to weigh on her even as she's fighting to stay alive behind enemy lines, adding an emotional gut punch underneath all the action. So with the rescue team racing against time, a traitor still hiding somewhere inside the agency, and Joe's own family now caught in the crossfire, one question keeps circling back louder than ever. What happens if the CIA saves Joe, but loses the war happening right under their own roof? Let's talk about the rescue itself, because this is where episode 4 is expected to really turn up the heat. The quick reaction force is moving fast, but here's the terrifying part. Every single step forward comes with brand new risk attached to it. Since the mole inside the CIA has not been caught yet, there is a very real possibility that this so-called rescue mission could be walking straight into a second trap. Think about that for a moment. The people trying to save Joe might be about to become victims themselves, and they wouldn't even see it coming until it's too late. Caitlyn and Byron are likely to be forced into making split-second decisions with almost no room to think things through. Every choice becomes a gamble between speed and caution, and both options come loaded with consequences. Move too fast, and they risk exposing their entire team. Move too slow, and Joe might not survive long enough for them to reach her. There is no safe option here, only degrees of danger, and that alone is enough to keep viewers glued to their screens. This is likely where the show ramps up the tension even further, using tight timelines, sudden complications, and close calls that never quite let you exhale. And here's a question worth sitting with. What happens to a team when they can no longer fully trust each other? Because that's exactly the situation Caitlyn and Byron may find themselves in. Expect confrontations that test loyalty in ways this show hasn't gone there before. Expect moments where characters are forced to look at people they've worked beside for years and quietly wonder, can I actually trust you right now? That kind of doubt doesn't just slow a mission down. It can destroy it from the inside out. As Caitlyn keeps digging deeper into the identity of the mole, she may start uncovering connections tied to people with real power. People who have a lot more to lose than just their careers if the truth comes out. And when powerful people feel cornered, they don't just quietly accept defeat. Expect political pressure. Expect cover-ups. Expect the very real possibility of threats aimed at silencing anyone who dares to get too close to the truth. The deeper Caitlyn digs, the more dangerous this entire investigation becomes. And not just for Joe. This could put everyone connected to exposing the leak directly in the crosshairs. Doesn't that change how you look at this whole situation? This isn't just a rescue mission anymore. It's turning into a fight against something far bigger and far more organized than one bad actor feeding intel to the enemy. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Joe is fighting her own version of this war, and she's doing it completely alone. She doesn't have the comfort of knowing backup is definitely coming in time. She doesn't know if the enemy is still one step ahead of her team. All she has is her own instincts, her own training, and her own ability to stay calm when everything around her is falling apart. And here's the unsettling part. This time feels different for her. Because if someone on the inside has been feeding information to the enemy, then the enemy might already know more about her team, her tactics, and her weaknesses than she'd ever want to admit. That means Joe cannot afford to assume help is simply on the way. She has to remain sharp, alert, and ready to make dangerous choices entirely on her own. Choices that could either save her life or put her in even deeper danger. Fans should expect her survival instincts to be pushed to their absolute limit in this stretch of the episode. Being cut off behind enemy lines means she can't count on someone showing up right when she needs them most. So she improvises, she reads people, she calculates risk in real time because one wrong move out there could be the difference between making it home and becoming another headline. This is likely where the show delivers some of its most intense, edge-of-your-seat moments yet. Blending sharp, tense dialogue with the constant threat of violence sitting just beneath the surface of every interaction. Nothing feels safe. No conversation feels neutral. Every glance, every pause, every choice of words could be Joe testing the waters to figure out exactly how much danger she's actually in. And here's something else worth considering. What if Joe's disappearance in the first place wasn't some random stroke of bad luck? What if the enemy knew exactly where she would be, right down to the smallest detail? If that turns out to be true, suspicion is going to fall hard and fast on everyone who had access to that kind of sensitive information. That puts an enormous amount of pressure on the CIA itself. And it forces Caitlyn to start looking beyond the obvious suspects, examining connections she might never have questioned before. Because here's the uncomfortable truth this episode seems to be building toward. The real traitor might be someone nobody saw coming. Someone who has been sitting quietly in plain sight this entire time, trusted without a second thought. And if that's the case, it doesn't just change the outcome of this mission. It could completely reshape the direction of the rest of the season. So as the rescue team closes in on Joe's location, as Caitlyn edges closer to uncovering the identity of the mole, and as Joe herself fights to survive one more hour behind enemy lines, one bone-chilling question remains. What if the person betraying this entire team is someone they've trusted from the very beginning, and they still have absolutely no idea? While all of this is happening on the battlefield, there's another storyline quietly building at home. And honestly, it might end up being one of the most emotional threads of this entire episode. Neil is already struggling with growing fear, and episode 4 is expected to pull that personal pressure even closer to the center of the story. Because let's be real, Joe's work has always come with a cost. But now, that cost is becoming something her family can no longer pretend not to see. As the rescue operation develops and the danger surrounding Joe becomes impossible to ignore, Neil may finally begin to grasp just how serious this situation truly is. This isn't some abstract, faraway danger anymore. This is his wife, missing, exposed, and possibly being hunted down at this very moment. And that kind of fear doesn't stay contained. It's expected to spill over into every part of his life, forcing him and the kids into tighter protective custody as the threat around them continues to grow. Doesn't it make you wonder how much more this family can actually take before it breaks them completely? Here's the thing about this episode that makes it hit differently. Everyone is fighting a different piece of the exact same crisis. The rescue team is racing to find Joe before it's too late. The agency is scrambling to understand exactly how deep this breach really goes. And Neil is sitting at home, dealing with a fear he can't fully control, waiting for news that might never come. Or worse, news he's terrified to hear. That's not just a rescue story anymore. That's a story about what happens to the people left behind when someone they love disappears into a mission gone wrong. Now let's shift back to the team itself, because there's something quietly devastating happening beneath the surface of this whole operation. Trust has always been the foundation holding this group together. It's what let them walk into impossible situations, knowing the person beside them had their back no matter what. But now that an internal leak has been confirmed as real, that foundation is being tested in a way it never has before. And here's a question worth asking. Once trust is broken like this, does it ever really come back the same way? Caitlyn may find herself doing something she never expected to do, looking at her own people she has relied on for years, with a level of suspicion she has never had to use before. And that alone is enough to create friction, tension, and quiet resentment between characters who used to operate without a single ounce of doubt between them. Imagine working side by side with someone for years, trusting them with your life, and suddenly being forced to wonder if they're the one who sold you out. Byron, who has typically been the calm, steady presence in high-pressure moments, might find himself caught right in the middle of all this chaos, trying to hold the team together while also pushing hard to uncover the truth before more damage is done. That's an incredibly difficult position to be in, and it's likely to test him in ways we haven't seen before. Because holding a team together when trust has already been shattered isn't just difficult, it might be nearly impossible. This episode seems set up to explore something deeper than just a single act of betrayal. It's likely to show how betrayal doesn't just threaten a mission. It threatens relationships. It threatens loyalty. It threatens the entire structure that keeps a team like this functioning at all. Expect tense, guarded conversations. Expect careful body language. Expect characters choosing their words with extreme caution because they genuinely don't know who might be listening, or worse, who might be reporting back. And here's where things could get even bigger. What if this mole isn't acting alone? What if foreign operatives already had access to sensitive intelligence long before Joe's mission even began? That raises a truly unsettling question. How long has this breach actually been happening, and how much damage has already been done without anyone even realizing it? If that turns out to be true, this isn't just about catching one traitor anymore. This could set up a much larger, much darker storyline for the rest of the season. One that points toward an organized threat working from deep inside the system, rather than a single person acting out of greed or fear. Doesn't that completely change how you look at everything that's happened so far this season? Every mission, every close call, every moment that felt like bad luck might actually have been something far more calculated all along. So think about where that leaves this team heading into the final stretch of this episode. Joe is still out there fighting to survive. The mole is still somewhere inside the walls of the CIA, watching, waiting, possibly still feeding information to the enemy. And the very people trying to save Joe are now forced to question whether the person standing next to them is truly on their side. With trust completely shattered and the danger only growing, one question keeps circling back louder than ever. If the enemy already knows every move this team makes before they make it, is anyone in this story actually safe? As the rescue team closes in, expect the pacing of this episode to shift into overdrive. This is likely where short, sharp bursts of action start mixing with quiet, unbearable pauses. The kind of pauses where every sound, every shadow, every flicker of movement feels like it could mean the difference between rescue and disaster. That contrast is exactly what makes this kind of episode so hard to watch without holding your breath. Because in moments like these, silence isn't peaceful. Silence is dangerous. Joe's window to survive this is closing fast. And whether she makes it out through pure skill, a desperate gamble, or a last-minute twist involving the very mole the team has been hunting this entire time, one thing feels certain. This episode is shaping up to deliver the kind of payoff fans have been waiting for since the very first episode of this season. Every clue, every betrayal, every close call has been building toward this moment. And honestly, doesn't it feel like the show has been saving up all of its tension just to unload it right here? But even if Joe does make it out alive, does that actually mean this crisis is over? Because here's the uncomfortable truth this season keeps circling back to. The CIA's biggest threats haven't been coming from outside enemies. They've been coming from within. And if that mole is still out there, still hiding in plain sight, still trusted by the very people they've betrayed, then rescuing Joe might just be the beginning of an even bigger fight. Getting her out of danger doesn't automatically mean the danger is gone. It might just mean it's shifted into a different, more dangerous phase. Think about what that means going forward. If the traitor is still embedded inside the agency, every future mission is now compromised before it even begins. Every plan Caitlyn and Byron put together could already be at risk the moment it's decided on. That's a terrifying thought, isn't it? An entire team operating in the field, believing they're moving in secret, while someone on the inside might already be one step ahead of them, quietly deciding who lives and who doesn't. And let's not forget what this entire ordeal has done to Joe personally. Even if she survives this rescue, she's not walking away from this unchanged. She's going to be carrying the weight of knowing her mission put her own family in danger. She's going to be carrying the fear of not knowing who inside her own agency she can actually trust. And she's going to be carrying the exhaustion of a battle that tested every single skill she's ever learned just to make it out alive. That's not something a person simply shakes off. That's something that lingers, quietly shaping every decision she makes moving forward. For Neil and the kids, this experience is likely to leave scars too. Once a family has been forced to confront just how real and immediate this kind of danger is, does life ever really go back to feeling normal again? Or does that fear simply become something they learn to live with, always sitting quietly in the background, waiting to resurface the next time Joe walks out the door for another mission? Meanwhile, for Caitlyn and Byron, uncovering the mole, if they even manage to do it by the end of this episode, might not bring the relief fans are hoping for. Because catching one traitor doesn't undo the damage already done. It doesn't erase the fact that trust inside this team has been permanently altered. And if this episode hints at a larger, more organized threat working from within, then this might just be the first crack in something much bigger the show is planning to expose as the season continues. So here's where that leaves us heading toward the end of Special Ops Lioness Season 3, Episode 4. Joe's fight for survival, a traitor possibly still hiding in plain sight, a family forever changed by fear, and a team that may never fully trust each other the same way again. This episode is shaping up to be one of the most intense, emotionally loaded hours of the entire season, blending life-or-death action with deep betrayal and personal sacrifice in a way that's going to leave fans talking for days. Special Ops Lioness Season 3, Episode 4 is set to release on Sunday, August 23rd, 2026, exclusively on Paramount Plus. So make sure you're ready the moment it drops, because based on everything building up to this point, you will not want to miss a single second of it. If you want more breakdowns like this every single week, make sure you hit subscribe, ring that notification bell, and drop your predictions in the comments below. Who do you think the real traitor is? Do you think Joe makes it out of this alive? And more importantly, once this episode ends, do you really think the danger for Joe, her team, or her family is actually over? Because if this season has taught us anything so far, it's that in Special Ops Lioness, the biggest threats rarely come from where you expect them to.